Welcome back. This is episode 2 of Getting Started with Windows 2D. Today we're going to be loading images from the asset folder and displaying them onto the screen. After that, the last part of the episode will be defining a content pipeline such that we can use this class throughout the whole project, such that when we give it a unique string ID, it will return us that particular bitmap that we loaded in the first part of the video. Alright, so now let's get started. We're going to just open our old EP1 project. I made a few changes to Visual Studio. The text in the source code view should be a lot larger so that you can see it better in the video. Okay. Now, let me make sure this is the exact same project. I might have changed it a little bit, but let's see what happens if we compile it. Yeah, this is what I was suspecting. Okay, this is good. And we're going to get rid of the images I loaded in when I was doing this video in a test run. Okay, now this should look like the project that you had from yesterday. So, the first thing we got to discuss is we'll click on main page .xaml and we'll select the canvas control and we'll click on this light and bold right here. And remember from the previous video I discussed two events: the draw event where we do our drawing course, and the create resource event where I said that this is where we load in all our assets. We'll double click on here to go back to our event handler for that event, and the very first thing we have to do is change the function definition, and we need to add something called async to it. Async, there we go. And we need to do this because all the functions we're going to use is it needs to be asynchronous as well. So yeah, okay. So now we need to actually load images into the asset folder, and Visual Studio makes this extremely easy. We're gonna right click on the asset folder, click on add, and click on existing item. I'm gonna browse to my desktop folder where I have these images that I want to load. You can load in any type of images you like, JPEG, GIFs, PNGs, and whatnot. But I do have these images I want to load up, and I'll load up, I don't know, this cannoneer and this clone here. So I just select both of them and click on add. And we're gonna replace any existing files that is already in the asset folder. There we go. So then we have a tm clone and a tm underscore canon, and we want to load these into a bitmap object that we can use. And we do this by just calling a very simple function called canvas bitmap load asynchronous. And what happens is it needs two arguments. First is the resource creator, which in this case is just the canvas control, and we just grab that from the sender. And then it needs a file name to, a file path to the file that we want to load. So it's basically just assets slash tm canon dot png, and then we do that again for the other bitmap that we want. You notice that there's ugly green lines underneath these functions, and that's because it's a asynchronous function that needs to be awaited. So just like that, like that. and they should be gone. And you will notice it returns something called a canvas bitmap, and we need some variables to store those so we can use it on later. And this is the ugly part, so I'm just going to make two canvas bitmap right into the class, which is going to be called canon. Another one is going to be called clone. Okay, and set the canon one to be that one, and set the clone one to be that one. Okay. What happens is it takes time for Win2D to load these images into these canvas bitmaps. So we need a variable to keep track to see if all the images are done. So I'm going to just create a boolean or bool that keeps tracks of it. So is all images loaded, and it will default to off or false. And after all the images are loaded, I set that to true. Now after all the images are loaded, I want to cause a refresh on the screen. Cause it to draw one more time. So to do that, all I have to do is invalidate the canvas control. And since the canvas control is sent as the sender, we just invalidate it right after we set the flag. Okay. And okay, yeah. Now let's see if that compiles. Nothing wrong. Okay, that's perfect. Now, in the draw function, we want to start using our cs.draw image that I said we'll cover later in the series, and that point in time is now. So first we have to check the flag if all the images are loaded first, and then we can use it, right? So is all images loaded. That means we can use the images now. And to draw the image is pretty easy. Just call draw image, and it just wants the bitmap you want to draw. So in this case, I'm going to draw the canon and then an X and a Y. So let's go 150 by 400 and see what that looks like. Oh man, that looks awesome. Okay, now we need to draw the other one, right? Okay, we'll draw the clone guy right next to his buddy at 200. He probably needs more than that. 250, 400. Let's put him over here instead. So that's, I would say 300 and like 500. Make it 300 and then 500. Okay, that's close enough. Remember, it draws it at the very top left corner of the bitmap downwards. And later in the series, we'll create a bounding box for each of these images, so we know exactly where the starting point is, how much width it takes up, and how much height it takes up. But for now, this should be good enough. Now that that part of the video is over, so what we have learned is we can just add in images into the asset folder. We can just load them. We have to load them in the create resource event handler using load async. Get a reference to the canvas bitmap, and we can just call draw image with the canvas bitmap, and then give it a location where you want to draw. It's that simple. Now, here's where the problem comes in. What happens if we have thousands of images that we want to show? Like, you know, that top-down space shooter game that I show at the beginning of the series. That's done in Win2D, and it's real time, and you see all these images with all these things shooting each other. And you can't just have just a bunch of this crap laying like this. It's just messy. So we got define something like a content pipeline such that we load everything into this pipeline and then request the bitmap given a unique ID. So the canon, I will just call it get me canon, and then it'll return this canon bitmap. And it will make our lives a lot easier as our project gets much larger. So let's create that. We want to create this in the shared project so then we can use it in our Windows Phone 8.1 project later. So right click on the share project, click on add, and new item, and Visual C# code and class. I'm going to call this content, actually image content pipeline or something like that, right? Nah, let's just call it content pipeline underscore image. That's what I'm gonna call it. Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, and we're gonna change this namespace for all our shared libraries to be called triple source, and I want this to be a public static class actually. And what it is in C, in C++, in standard library, you have this class called a map, and you give it you know, a template, a key template, and then a return template, and that's what we're going to use here. But in C#, I'm pretty sure map doesn't exist, but a very close thing to it is called a dictionary. So a dictionary like this, and string, and then we're going to return a canvas bitmap, and then we'll call this image dictionary for now. And it's complaining that it doesn't have that canvas bitmap, so we'll include the namespace for that. And this is going to be static as well. I can't type today. Okay. So what are the things we need to do to make this work? We need to have a function that adds image into the image dictionary. We need a function that removes the image from the image dictionary. And we don't need one that requests the thing because we can just use the image dictionary as is. Now let's go back to main page xaml.cs, and remember that the only way we load images is that we have to call something like this. And it needs a resource creator, so it has to have a reference to the canvas control, right? So canvas control parent canvas, right? And that's equals to null. Okay. So what we want to do is we'll do this function first, the add image. So static public add image, and the string ID, this is the unique ID you want to give it, and of course we have to give it the file path to the thing we want to load. And then how about we just go it has to be async task bool because of this. Okay, yeah, okay, we have to copy something that looks like this. So it's complaining about the task because I need a reference. System.threading.task, like that. It should be okay. Okay, so we're just gonna load in the images the exact way we load here. I'm just gonna copy this over here just for reference. Okay, first it seems like we have to check the canvas control to see if it's null. Null check. If equals null, print false. And then load the bitmap from file, canvas, equals await canvas bitmap, load async parent canvas, and then file path. That. Then we have to check to see if it's null. False. No check. Okay. Now we have a canvas bitmap and it's loaded perfectly fine. Now we need to actually add it into the dictionary. So image dictionary dot add the ID, which is the key. So I should just change this to key. Actually, it makes more sense. And then you need a, excuse me, you need to just pass it the bitmap we just loaded. Now we want to return true or false if this image has been correctly added into the dictionary. Unfortunately, this doesn't have return value we can use, so we have to basically take a count of it before we add. Check size, add, check size again. If somebody knows a better way to do it, let me know. Just send me a a little email or message on YouTube or something. But okay, so we have a size after add and the size before add. So if it actually gets inserted, then the size after add has to be larger. It's pretty simple. So if size after add is greater than size before add, return true. And at the end, that means something has happened and we couldn't add it to the dictionary, so we return false. There we go. Okay. When you guys download this project file from my OneDrive or wherever, I will have the summaries put in for these functions, just to be complete. But for now, I'm not gonna do it until the video has ended. So it says to do remove image, and for now we're not too concerned about removing any images that we load into the dictionary. So we will keep this as a to do. So like that. Okay. Now let's use this in our project. So click on main page.xaml.cs, and to use it, since we are using a different namespace, we'll have to add that in as well. So add in triple source. This can go away. These will go away, and we need to change this to something else later. Okay. The first thing we have to do is pass the canvas control to the image pipeline, but since it is statically created, we have access to it just by the namespace here. And then parent canvas equals sender. Set parent canvas. Now it's ready to load in any images we want. Now we can just call add image, give it a unique key, and then the path to the file name. So add sets. What did we call this? What was it? tm_canon. That png. Yep. have to await that. And the same thing here. Add image, and we'll call this clone, and then give it a the path. That's all we have to do. Set the flag, await, and that's it. Now we want to draw the exact same images that we loaded in, and this way was kind of nasty because you have to have a object to the thing. So in here we're just gonna go canvas bitmap cb equals null, and we're just gonna get it out from the dictionary. So image dictionary, try and get value, and what it wants is that key that you stored the image with. So this one is going to be the canon, and it wants a out value of a bitmap. What this means is if it was successful getting the canon image, it wants this variable to be referenced to that bitmap that has stored in the dictionary. So out CB like this. Now at this point it can still be null if it fails. So before you draw the image, then you want to check that. But this thing returns a false value if it was unable to get the bitmap from the dictionary. So we can use that to shorten up our code. Something like this. And instead of canon, we just go CB. And we can do this again for the next one, which we call clone. And this one is at 350, 500, right? So the code gets a little bit nicer now. Let's see if this works. The output should be the same from not using image dictionary. Okay, so the output's the same. We have our line, our circle, kind of like a rectangle. That's what it is. A fill circle and a fill rectangle, our cannoneer, and our clone bitmap. I know this can seem a little bit too much, but we're trying to set up a framework we can build on. Because right now we're having magic numbers here, but we need to build small structures so we can use all these structures in an object to make bigger structures, and from there make even bigger structures. And that's how I take programming. Start out small, build on very small building blocks, and make a incredibly useful class. So in the next episode, we will be defining what's called a generic object or generic item. And a generic item is basically gonna be abstractly, it will be just an object with an x, y value, so we don't have to have these magic values. It will contain a bitmap, it will contain an update function, and then contain a draw function. So we didn't have to do any of this mess up here. All we have to do is create the object, give it a string that it can reference to the dictionary, give it a starting location, and give it and then just call draw on it. So you don't have to mess with any of this stuff. So once you create a object like that, well, you can have an array of objects, and your drawing function is just a for loop, right? So as you can see, as we advance a bit further down the road, making a game that you saw at the beginning of the video with, it looks like 10,000 objects on the screen going at each other, that's actually very simple to do. And I'll see you next time for episode 3.